Hey everyone, so in 2013, both Microsoft and Sony introduced their 8th generation consoles. And in this video, we're going to be taking a closer look at how each company introduced their next generation console to the world, and how effective they were in terms of marketing. But before I continue, I want to mention that this video will be a two-part series. We're going to be comparing both consoles entirely, from the moment they were introduced up until now. Part 2 will compare both consoles side by side in a variety of ways, and at the end of part 2, there will be a definitive winner. So be sure and you're subscribed to make sure that you do not miss part 2. On May 21st, 2013, Microsoft held a press event in Redmond. They began revealing the console and then showing off the capabilities of Kinect. The capabilities were pretty astonishing. The ability to control the Xbox via Kinect, and doing many things via voice command.
I simply spread my hands, grab the screen, and I'm back home.
Although all these features were wonderful, the main concept of a gaming console is games, and in that aspect, Microsoft really dropped the ball. They were slowly morphing the console into something completely different. To make matters worse, after the presentation at their Q&A, it was confirmed that the Xbox One was an online-only device, meaning that you needed to have an internet connection at all times in order to actually play. Executive Phil Harris later said, "There are many devices in our life that require the internet to function. Xbox One is no different." When Kotaku asked, "How long can a player be offline?" Harrison responded with those infamous words, "I believe it's 24 hours." These responses from Harrison really destroyed the Xbox One's hype. The Xbox brand went from being a loved console last generation to the worst and most hated. And to make matters worse, Dom Matrick said the following in order to defend the 24-hour online requirement.
Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message. If you don't,
Well,
like it.
if you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline.
This further damaged the Xbox reputation. And even to this day, many people still dislike the Xbox brand for this very reason. And that's even before we discuss the DRM restrictions that were going to be imposed on game sales or the inability to loan a game to a friend. Microsoft was truly going to take over the game industry in a negative way, imposing restrictions on all games and truly limiting what people could do with the games they had purchased. Eventually, the price was made public, and that made fans even more upset. At $500, the console was expensive, and they were all forced to purchase the Kinect. The console was designed with Kinect in mind, so the system wouldn't work properly without it, or so they claimed. All of the negative press ultimately led to Dom Matrick, the president of Microsoft, to step down and move to another company. Microsoft was really banking on the success I saw with the Xbox 360 and the tremendously successful Kinect. But it turned out that gamers weren't really interested in paying more for a component that didn't do anything for them. I would much rather have a less expensive console. The Kinect was an awesome piece of technology that did some pretty incredible things, but gamers ultimately wanted the option of whether or not they wanted to utilize it. They certainly didn't want to be forced. A few weeks later, on June 11th, 2013, Sony had the opportunity to respond. They immediately corrected some of the mistakes they made with the PS3, and they also took the opportunity to take some jabs at the missteps that Microsoft had made at their introduction event.
PlayStation 4 disc-based games don't need to be connected online to play. For instance, PlayStation 4 won't impose any new restrictions on the use of PS4 game discs.
Here's a commercial that was released taking a direct jab at the Xbox One's DRM game restrictions. At the time, Xbox One was not going to allow game sharing or used games. And if you ask me, this Sony commercial is absolutely brilliant marketing.
This is how you share your games on PS4. Thanks.
Sony was smart to build around the Xbox One's mistakes, and that's pretty much how the majority of their keynote went, ensuring gamers around the world that Sony cared about the gamer and was willing to make things right. The real nail on the coffin was the price point. The system hardware was already being described by many as the superior console due to the higher specifications and cheaper price point, which certainly made the console more appealing.
I'm very proud to announce that PlayStation 4 will be available at $399.
It's crazy to see how important and crucial marketing strategies really are. Microsoft went from being one of the most beloved gaming companies last generation to being one of the most hated. All of the internal decisions led to many changes in the Xbox One, and even the console needed to receive a massive day one update to change many of the early decisions that were made with regard to DRM, basically an update to undo all of the horrible decisions that were hurting sales. And even though Microsoft stated that the Kinect would never be sold separately, they eventually had to eliminate the Kinect and rework the entire operating system to allow users to better control console's main menu. Microsoft had envisioned that every user would own a Kinect, and the operating system's navigations were built around the Kinect. And once it was gone, the operating system felt cluttered and unoptimized. To this day, nearly 3 years later, Microsoft is still recovering from that early debacle. But Microsoft has done a lot to improve and provide a better gaming experience. And if the console would have been released as it is now, the console war would have been so much closer. In the next part, we will be putting these consoles in a head-to-head matchup. We're gonna see which console is the best. I own both. However, I will be picking a decisive winner by the end of part 2. And hopefully that will provide enough information for you to make a decisive decision on which console is the best for you. Anyways, be sure and subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of this Versus video series. And if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button. And as always, I'll catch you guys next time.